And we're live.
All right, we made it.
Yeah. And for the people watching this as a recording, thank you very much for tuning in.
Hey, Mark. Mark,
Hey,
can you hear us okay? Yeah.
I can hear you fine. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'll give you a quick introduction here. Tonight, we're joined by Mark Babitz. He is the president of the Elan School Survivors. Mark, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
Doing well. So, this is a story that not a lot of people know about, I don't think, in the state of Maine. Don't realize everything that took place at the Elan School. You want to give us a background of what the Elan School was and how you're involved with that?
Well, the Elan School was a place in Maine. Started out in Naples, Maine. It actually started out in Naples, and they moved to Sebago. When I got there, they were in Poland Springs. The first two facilities, the one burnt down, and then they all moved to Poland Springs. It was like a big commune. It was when I was there, and they were from all of life, all ages, from anywhere from 13 years old, 30 years old. And it was just a very, very bizarre experience going there. I went there because I was a renegade kid, stole some cars, got in some trouble, did a few things. And so were a lot of the kids there. But there was guys there that were drug addicts and prostitutes and stuff that a lot of us really weren't that familiar with. And then there were kids in there that actually did nothing wrong but smoke pot and didn't go to school. You know, it was a very broad mixture of kids. It was very intense in the 70s. It was nothing like the later years. That's, not to placate the later years, of course, but the 70s, the first 10 years, 5 years of the place was a major testing ground. It was whatever they could try, they tried.
I'm not sure what happened to your audio. It was fine earlier. Now it's getting all crackly.
Am I breaking up too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a connection issue.
A little. Oh.
No, everything appears to be a bit frozen.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
Now the video is frozen up. Well, we do have something here we can say real quick. Sandra D. Bourgeois says, "Hi, Mark," if I'm pronouncing that right. And she also says, "Thank you for keeping our story alive, Mark."
Yeah, Sandra, great person. I know her very well. Something like that.
There was a movie that you were involved with called The Last Stop. How are you involved with that?
I did all the research for that.
Do you mind if I'm going to play a trailer here while you get your audio maybe adjusted?
All right.
So people can kind of see what the Elan School is about.
Very young age, things went very badly for me.
I was pretty angry and confused about a lot of things.
Well, I was always in trouble with the law.
Broke into people's houses and cars.
Possession and intent to distribute it in a school zone.
I started using drugs when I was 13.
I was doing heroin.
I was taken away from my mother when I was 13.
It used to be that we had bad kids who were locked away in reform schools and sick kids who were locked away in mental hospitals.
I was institutionalized from when I was 13 until I was 18.
I ran away from every place my parents put me in.
But in this decade, we've been seeking an alternative.
They were trying to find a school that would keep me, no matter how many times I ran away.
Instead of simply punishing unacceptable behavior,
my mom's abused me, beat the shit out of me.
We've been looking for ways to change that behavior. This facility, called Élan, claims to be able to do that.
This is the last stop on the bus. If you don't send your son here, he's going to be dead. You can count on it.
Where the fuck am I?
The Elan program was twofold. In one sense, there were therapeutic groups.
Your feelings, your negative attitudes are broken down, dissected, torn apart.
The other side of Elan was a functional working microcosm of the work world.
It was very Lord of the Flies.
That's the best part. The inmates run the asylum.
At Elan, the first thing they learn is you're not going to get out of here.
You succeed and survive if you accept the program. If you don't, there are punishments.
I'm going to hurt anybody they want me to.
Even the most minor infraction provokes a torrent of castigation, insults, and public humiliation.
General fucking meeting!
We had to be dealt with swiftly and forcefully.
They stomped the shit out of you.
You want to act like a baby? You should be treated like a baby.
Attack therapy is basically the idea that we need to attack you and break you entirely in order to rebuild you as a good person.
To this day, I believe Élan was the best and worst thing that happened to me.
I think Élan really fucked up my life.
The treatment they sell is abuse. We see teenagers as being diseased just for being teenagers.
We have our son back.
So many kids were destroyed by this place.
They wanted to force change. Sometimes change isn't easy.
99 and 9/10% of the people in this room told you they think you suck as a person. And that if they had their way, they'd cut your throat, put you out of your misery, and relieve the human race of having to deal with an ingrate like you.
Yeah, that about sums it up in a nutshell.
Oh yeah. You're still muted, Travis. There we go.
Yeah, that was weird. Just watching that video was tough to watch, and I can't imagine living it.
Tough
right?
to watch. Tough to watch. That was a comedy skit at Elan. That thing was nothing. If we would have did our documentary from 70s forward, no one would have believed it, and they'd have ran out of the theater. They were appalled at what they saw, and you were seeing kind of like the 90s and the 2000s after it was like way tapered down. When I was there, they would learning experiences were unbelievable. I mean, they wrapped this one girl up like a mummy and threw her in the lake. Okay, pulled her out of the lake, dragged her back up there, threw her in a grave, buried her, and we all walked away. Now, allegedly, she came out of it. We never saw her after that, but nonetheless, that happened. There was another girl, Jennifer Stamler. She's in the documentary. They talk about her. They threw her in the lake, beat her with a paddle when she had her jeans on still. I mean, the girl had welts. I mean, the thickness of a quarter. I mean, it was just. I mean, the one kid had they thought they had meningitis, and Jeff Gottlieb just didn't believe him. So he laid in bed for about 2 or 3 days. Finally jerks him out of bed. The kid's dead. You know, Phil Williams was a case that I brought to Maine that actually went out for quite a while. Nothing ever happened, of course, but there was a case there where the kid had an aneurysm. He was already set up to see a neurologist the following week, I think it was. The kid was lethargic. He wasn't really, want to get with the program. And around Elan, if you weren't getting with the program, they made you get with the program. There was no, you don't feel good stuff. That was not, they didn't care how you felt. That you weren't there. It was not about fear feelings. Long story short, he turned up in a boxing ring, got beat up, and died. It's just, that's the realities of it. Joe, and when I talked to the Maine State Police, it was really bizarre because I said to him, I said, I can even get you the dead owner's confession to this boxing ring. And they looked at me like I was out of my mind. And then I played some of these pieces from these documentaries where Joe Ritchie, he said, yes, we have a boxing ring, but they just, for some reason, nobody seemed to care.
So Joe Ritchie owned Scarborough Downs, right?
He owned Scarborough Downs. Yeah, he bought that, I want to say 79 or something like that. He was only like 20, maybe 28, 29 years old then.
And then he also ran this school.
He bought Scarborough Downs as a place to play, is what that was. Joe Ritchie was a millionaire by the age of 28. When I was there in 75, I was there from about late 74 to early 76. He was making $1,200 a month off every person that came through that door. We had 250 people. Now, if you take your calculators and go back a ways, back in those days, you could buy a brand new, fully loaded Corvette for $6,500. So just start doing some math. This guy was making money hand over fist. And then when Parsonsfield came to light, Parsonsfield was a lockdown facility. It basically fed off a Maine justice system, and it fed off Long Lake School in Connecticut. And the judge would sentence kids there. So kids were going there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and it didn't matter how you acted. That's where you were. So that's guaranteed cash coming in. Oh yeah, Joe Ritchie, he was a scandalous man. He was just a scandalous man. He had that place going. He had some apartments going. Like 4 or 5 apartment places. A couple strip malls, a bunch of vacant land. He had his hands on a bunch of stuff.
And it sounds like the whole thing was a scam, just a money grab for him, right?
That's all it was, dude. I'm telling you, at the place, they almost made sure they had one person on the property, not on the property, but that worked for the place with credentials. So that was Dr. Davidson. So Dr. Davidson, when I was there, he lasted, I don't know how long, and then he died. Well, after him and Joe Ritchie had a big breakup, and then he went to Florida, and he turned out dying. So the guy named Jerry Sapant they brought in, and he was a regular doctor, psychiatrist, or whatever, and he was the one who held the credentials. Outside of that, it was the patients ran the asylum. It was a total promote from within. The only people that worked, the only lay people you had there would be like the cook. They had a couple drivers towards the end there, and that was about it. The nurse. Outside of that, everybody was from Élan. You were all, it was bizarre. You would have a 13, 14-year-old kid screaming, yelling at some 25-year-old guy and calling him a bag of shit and everything else 1 week, and the next week he'd be doing it to them. I mean, that's just
it's like a cult mentality, right? You convince the Stockholm some of the patients enough so that they believe in it, and then
absolutely
it's just never ending cycle.
You're dealing with a lot of kids there that really were lost in a lot of ways. I was one of them. I had no real direction in life or what I wanted. I was adopted when I was a kid. I mean, as a kid, I was kind of lost in life. I think I still am lost in life. But anyhow, and it's easy to get sucked into those things because they make you believe that you're going in the right direction.
Right, that you have a purpose.
You have a purpose. You have strength. You have intelligence. And I came from a situation where my dad was brutal. He was brutal. I came from a very brutal upbringing in Chicago. And we lived in a nice area, but I lived hard. And going to Élan was not a real new experience as far as the violence and the screaming and the yelling. I was brought up like that. I heard it all the time. I went to juvenile hall. And, for kids that were kind of conditioned, it wasn't such a bizarre experience. It was just a hard one to understand because all of our lives we were taught that being violent, doing this, doing that ain't the right way to go. And here they're just encouraging. The more you dominate somebody, the more you beat them down mentally, physically, the better person you are. It was
Unreal.
really weird. It was a college for narcissists. If you were a narcissist, you were in exactly the right spot. But anybody else, I knew some guys in there that were pretty hardcore dudes. And even they were like, what the fuck's going on here, man? What is all this nonsense? These people are, because a lot of us didn't like bullies. And these people were just bullies from the beginning of B. I mean, they were just bullies.
That's ridiculous. So we do have a comment here real quick. Actually, Terry says, this is a facility for troubled children, ? Were they all court ordered?
No, you had private. You had private funding in there. You had
so like your parents would send you away if they couldn't handle you. They would send you to Élan.
Right. And you also had school systems that would do it through IEPs. They would send you to Élan. That's how Illinois was doing it after they pulled us out in 2000, or not 2000, but in 76. They were still sending them up till they closed in 2000. Yeah, but they were doing it through IEPs. The state wasn't sending them. They were sending them through the IEPs for the schools, which I didn't quite figure. I never could figure that one out. The state felt so unfit to pull us out to begin with. And then it's okay to do it. It's politics, money. That's all it is. It's just money.
Now, you might have said this earlier, but how long were you there, or what years were you there?
I was there about 18 months. About 18 months. And Illinois pulled us out. I wasn't there as long as a lot of these people were. No, the state pulled us out in beginning of 76. I want to say it was January or February.
And you had mentioned the kid that had an aneurysm in the boxing ring. He ended up passing away, right?
Oh yeah, he died. And I got up to Maine there. It was 220. It was 2016, I think it was. And I started a homicide investigation with him. It was a cold case. It was never even a case. And the state took it on for about a year and a half. And then Janet Mills, she goes, well, there's not enough evidence. Oh, come on, man. Stop. Just stop. This place is the most publicized, unbelievably off the charts place you've ever had in your state that anybody knows of. don't tell me, and then you run into, well, the place has been closed, and nobody wanted to do anything about it. And you had Bill Diamond sitting up there in the front row, who was all a part of it. And it's just how the games go. Bill Diamond, he was liaison for Elan School. He was, and what the liaison does, he deals with all the states and the problems. And he said in one testimony, he goes, "I've never been on the property. I've got videos of him on the property and some of their promo films. I mean, they're just all full of shit."
That's probably a green screen, Mark, I'm sure.
And then
right.
Bill Diamond, after it closes, has the audacity to write this book, The Evil and the Innocent, which is about child abuse in places like Élan. And it was a bizarre book, dude. He wrote in there about this guy named Surgeon, I think his name was, and he was a child molester. And Diamond was campaigning against putting a public registry out there for child molesters and sex offenders, because some guy, I guess from Canada, came down there, took a little vigilante justice, and Bill Diamond thought that was wrong. Oh, it's just ridiculous. He said stuff in his book like girls that are 14 years old are okay to date a 25-year-old as long as their parents say it's cool. I mean, it's just by the book. It's in there. It's unbelievable, some of the stuff that this guy is saying. And now he's doing more of this child abuse stuff, this child care stuff. Where were you in 1975 when you were the headmaster at Raymond School District? Rubbing elbows with Joe Ritchie while we're getting the shit beat out of us in the woods. Where were you? You had to hear us, because there's local newspaper clippings, and I can find them for you, where the townspeople, the selectmen, I think they call them the selectmen in that area up there, where they were writing in because of all the noise, because Maine is one of the hunting capitals of the United States. But there was no animals. If you went to an Elan facility, I don't care if you're in Parsonsfield, Waterford, Poland Springs, you did not see a moose, you didn't see a deer, you didn't see a rabbit. You saw nothing. Waterford used to protest. They get in the streets, they were screaming and yelling. It's because this noise would echo across that upper rank pond there, and it just
just kids getting beat and screaming.
Man, the place never shut off. It never shut off. It was a 24-hour-a-day place. First of all, there wasn't enough room for everybody to sleep, so you had to sleep in shifts, and the place ran 24 hours a day. And then you had residents there, students, whatever you want to call them. I call them hostages. We all guarded the place at night. So there was always a fleet of 15, 20 people up just walking around as night owls and night men and night women. And it was bizarre. The place never shut off. It never ever shut off. It's screaming and yelling. They'd have general meetings in the middle of the night. They used to have these things called cowboy ass kickings. And what they would do is to take you from one house to the other house, and you would get a GM and go in the ring in every house you went to. So you could start out in Parsonsfield, go to Waterford, go to Poland Springs. We had 2 houses in Poland Springs. You go to one house and you come down the road, go to our house. I mean, you were just what was left of you. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then you wake us people up in the morning at 3, 4 in the morning. You haven't any sleep to begin with, a lot of sleep deprivation. And you'd be in there with some kid up against the wall that you don't know even who the hell this guy is or where he's from or why he's even here. All you know is you're awake, you're tired, and this son of a bitch got you woken up. So you're naturally aggressive towards the person just because just another person screw your day up. Because they'd normally be there for something stupid. It would be nothing major. I mean, these people are ridiculous. You couldn't talk to a girl, because if you talked to a girl, that meant you had eyes for her, which means you want to go to bed with her. You couldn't talk with a guy, because then you were glamorizing, they called it, and talking about the streets and how much fun it was to do drugs and stuff you probably didn't even do. When I got to Élan, I was 15 years old. I never drank, never did drugs. I did smoke cigarettes, but all the rest of that stuff, I wasn't about that. I was a car thief. I was a hustler. That's what I did. I finally stole a squad car and got a high-speed chase and little guns, a couple of little shooting back and forth, and they put me in a line. But it's just, and I almost repeated that experience at Élan when I ran away one time. It's like, I know her high-speed chase, just they have no guns to shoot back. But yeah, it's just, the place was just. What I took away from Élan is how not to ever treat people. That is one thing I took away from it, is how not to treat people. And being a collector for many years and a bounty hunter, you're not really in a profession that you're there to be nice to people. But I definitely learned ways of not to treat them or really victimize them to what I could do. I kept it professional. I wasn't sadistic about anything. Where some collectors are a little bit different, some bounty hunters are a little bit different about how they do their job. I just want to do the job and get it over with. In other words, I did the job because I had no fear. I grew up where I wasn't afraid to go anywhere to look for anybody. But maybe Élan helped me in that way, because I mean, they were just such sick people, man. I mean, just sick. The place, like I said, went on 24 hours a day. The stories never stop. Anybody you talk to can talk to you for hours and hours and hours and never even tell you half of what they saw.
So
Yeah,
the people that got brought up there, were they, and actually this relates to what I was going to say. Terry's asking if the individual were ever medicated. And on top of that, I was wondering, now people were brought in here for just a lot of behavioral type of stuff, right? But was it ever like mental and like physical sort of stuff? Were they violent criminals or violent offenders, or was it psychological as well? Just a big mix. That, to what she said, did they distribute medication there, or was it all just this abuse sort of tactics?
When I was there in the 70s, nobody got medication. They didn't feel you needed it. There were kids there with chemical imbalances that probably did need it. Not that they were violent, but they just didn't have control. You know, they'd act out, they'd be emotional, they just didn't have it together. It's basically the bottom line. But this is a place here that didn't believe in that. They didn't believe, they didn't need the drugs. They could fix you. They can make you better without these things. If you were gay, if you were gay, they try to transform you. Like the guy named Tommy Campiano when I was there, nicest guy in the world, looked like Vinny Barbarino from this TV show. Nicest guy, peaceful, calm. He's from Rhode Island. They swore to God that they were going to convert this guy back to being straight. And Tommy was a flamer. He the makeup, the hair, the whole deal. Tommy was one of the first people I actually physically saw face to face. I wasn't around anything like that when I was a kid. That was like, wow, okay. Yeah, he's like a RuPaul. You know, and it was just he was nice, but they would just torment this guy for no reason at all. You know, and even being young, I understand everybody's a little bit different, so God bless them. What they do, they do. You know, it is what it is. You know, not them people, man. They would just, if you told them you got along great with your mother, they thought you were screwing her. If you got along great with your dad, he was screwing you. You could not do. You couldn't be honest with him about anything.
Oh you were wrong no matter what you were doing in your life, huh?
No matter what you did, it was definitely wrong. Absolutely.
And this is a message from Sandra. She said that she was sexually assaulted by a male resident and she was not believed. Got a GM put in the corner for about 2 weeks before the truth finally came out. That is wretched.
Yeah, that's believable. Let's believe, because women, when I was in a lot, women probably had the worst experience. They treated women like they were less than human. Just that's how they were. And if a woman said something, yeah, right. So what? You were talking about a bunch of guys there, especially the staff. They were just these were your women beaters, man. These were your stereotypical women beater abusers. They had no respect for women and respect for their mother. That's how these guys were. And Sandra, yeah, I can very well believe that. Absolutely. You know, anything that they could do to take and twist around on you, they would do it. They would try to blame her. You know, it's almost like the way it is now in the world. The victim is actually the problem, not the abuser. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, the guy in New York.
And you'd have to imagine it would turn into something like that, right? Where the people, like you said, like the inmates are running the prison, where like people's baser instincts are taking over, and that's sort of what motivates people. Like they're not, I'm stronger than you, I don't have to listen to you, like that sort of mentality, right?
That's exactly what it was. It was like a big street gang. You know, you're on their pot, you're on their deck, and that's just how it's going to be. And you're going to do things their way, how they want it done. As long as you follow suit, you'll be safe. If not, you're going to have a rough life. You know, that's just the place was just. It was hard to describe the place. It's so, because hopefully nobody understand it that wasn't in a place like that. Hopefully you would not understand through that.
We do
like signs, right? They liked having kids wear signs.
So we got a couple messages here from Jessica Hamilton. Hi, Mark Babitz, and also they wouldn't accept you there if you were on meds. Another one from Sandra. They never treated anyone, not ADHD, not mental health issues, none of it. So true. They loved calling us whores for any reason. Agreeing with her, and just saying wearing signs that said whore. So,
they had the market cornered on signs. If you left alone and you know how to make a sign, there was something wrong with you. If anything, you had a trade. You were able to market. because you
Making
had to be able.
signs.
You were just making signs, and they would let you make your own sign, but don't make a sign that doesn't insult yourself, because otherwise you got to do it over again. But confront me on my need for male attention. Confront me on my need to be a whore. Confront me on my need to lie. I mean, just all these crazy, crazy, crazy signs. And you'd have to parade around the house like that for however long they wanted you to parade around the house with it. And when people would confront you, on something like that, then you'd have to come up with some spiel about, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. It was a whole humiliation process. It just wasn't necessary. It really wasn't. It was.
How did this place run this long? Is
40
like,
hours, because nobody cared. Nobody cared.
Blows my mind.
People can say, well, they have any law? Yes, they got the same laws then that they do now, pretty much. It's just getting somebody to follow those laws. We have U.S. border laws, but guess what? Nobody's following them. That's just how it is. It ran kind of like our borders do, and nobody gives a shit.
You had mentioned about how they kind of promote from within, right? So there wasn't a lot of outside people seeing what was going on. What about, like, did parents ever come visit, and was it a different show for the parents when they were there?
It was a very isolated show. That you would see them only in certain areas of the place. It was very controlled. Yeah, no, they didn't. There was no just show up and go walk around, you know, Brenda, and see what's going on today. No, it's none of that kind of stuff going on.
So were they escorted around by a supervisor when a family member came to visit or something?
It'd be another student, like a coordinator, or, you know, somebody like that would was part already indoctrinated, that would, you know, go through the spiel. Oh yeah, everything's perfect. This is how it is. There's nothing wrong. Don't believe your lying eyes. You know, they had those people. Those are the ones that they would have to do all the tours for parents and schmooze them up. And you got to remember, most of these parents were at the end of their wits anyway. So it was about time that somebody stepped their foot in little Travis's ass, because they were done with it. They couldn't take it no more. You know, Travis has lied to them their whole life. He's seen 15 doctors, thrown out 4 schools. They finally, and Joe Ritchie would say, you finally got to give up and let go. He's going to tell you anything, like he already has all his life, right? Yeah. And guess what? Travis isn't believed by his parents. So Travis can say whatever the fuck he wants to on a phone call. And it doesn't matter, because his parents have been set up already. Yep, he's lying to us again. Son, you gotta relax, kid. And then where they say it to him, although this time, the boy who cried wolf, there's really a wolf. He's like, wait a minute, no, really, the wolf's out there this time. Son, you just gotta hang in there. Wait a minute, you're gonna bite me. But they had the parents so set up. And at the end of their wits, they just did. And a place like that.
And even when they closed, it says here they closed on March 23rd, 2011, and the school's owner, her name was Sharon Terry.
April. They was closed on April 1st. April
Okay.
Fool's Day, they were closed.
But what she had said about them closing was, quote unquote, the school has been the target of harsh and false attacks spread over the internet, which allowed avowed purpose of forcing the school to close. Still lying right up until the day that they closed about, all fake stuff.
They literally threw the keys up in the air, and ran out. I swear to God, I can make all the statements I want because I can back them up. If you go anywhere on any of these Elan pages, you watch some of these people have gone through the place, some of these urban explorers and stuff like that, they left everything. The files, the pictures, the book, everything, the shoes, everything. They literally threw the keys in the air. If you go in the nurse's office, all the medical files are still upstairs. Everything is still, there's the most strangest thing you've ever seen in your life. Parsons Field still has the same purple curtains upstairs that did in 1975. They still got school books in the back hallway, and it's gone through 2 owners, and the books are still there. It's a strange story to tell. It's a strange place.
Another message from Jessica here saying that she scrubbed the bathroom floor with a toothbrush for 2 weeks, 24/7, literally made me sleep in there on the floor. And another one from Sandra, and the truth of the facility was so outrageous that when you told anyone, they didn't believe you. And I mean, hearing about it, you would think that if I didn't see the videos, if I just heard about this from someone, it's like, there's no way that would be able to happen, right? There's no way the facility would be able to run like that. But
Joe Ritchie's famous last words, no one will ever believe you. And he's absolutely 100% right. You know, you guys lived up the block from the place. Not literally, you live in Waterville, but I'm just saying, you lived up the road. You didn't even. I had so many people in Poland say to me, I never knew. because they were all told in Waterford and all those surrounding areas were a bunch of drug addicts and criminals from the inner city. So you people kind of just steered your way clear of that place because you didn't know what the hell was coming out of there. You know, the one kid, Brad Glickman, who got killed in, Norway, by O'Hara, shot him. He was a runaway, turned out going to a farmhouse, hung out for a while. They say it was I would believe the kid got shot. They say it was this and that, and it was more of an accident than an actual thing. But nonetheless, he turned up dead. That was something they used to rub it in people's asses. You know, that happened just around the time I was there, and they'd rub that in their head. See, you run away from here, them people catch you and kill you out there. You don't know about these Maynards up here. These hillbillies don't know any better. Oh, yeah, I'm telling you. Jeez. They had us so scared. And all the Maynards we saw, because we'd always travel in these groups if they took you on a shopping trip someplace. And when in retrospect, you think about it, we did stand out. So these locals be looking at us like monkeys in the zoo. Right. So you did kind of feed into Joe Ritchie's narrative. Yeah, they're watching you, man. They tell you these hillbillies will kill you up here. And every time you go out, you watch them staring at you like, I bet these people want to kill us, don't they? you were
just because they see a big group of you guys being escorted around and.
Well, you couldn't figure it out.
I was going to ask you about that.
God knows you people had to hear the screams, and nobody came to our rescue. It was like, you guys must be
man.
What the fuck?
That's awful.
We understood Stephen King. We understood how Stephen King could write his books. We got it. That was quick. Yep, Stephen King. We understand now. Yeah.
How many years that you're aware of? How many kids escaped from Élan? Like ran away from Élan, and were they all? I know you just told us about the one kid that had been shot, but
I'd say a couple dozen probably. Over the years, a couple dozen probably did. I ran away twice.
One female I had read actually was picked up by a serial killer or something.
Yeah, that Sean Birmingham it was. She got picked up by a guy named Cruz who got dumped in Pennsylvania. Yep, they called her, what was it, Morning Star, when they found her. There's a documentary about her. Because they didn't know who she was. She wasn't identified, and then finally identified who she was, yeah. That was Dawn.
Yeah, 1993, yeah, Dawn Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Élan could have been a front for
her boyfriend? She ran away before, and she ran away the second time to go meet up with her boyfriend, I think in Florida or someplace. He was a trucker too. And this guy was supposed to give her a ride to help her out, and needless to say, that didn't work out like that.
Is there any chance Élan was a front as a traffic ring or anything for trafficking kids?
You know,
you're aware of?
It's been said, but you know, I don't know. I'm not going to go deep into that. That I couldn't prove. Joe Ritchie was never a mobster. That was always rumor. He first of all, he had too big of a mouth. You know, nobody in any of those groups up there, especially the Patriarca family, they would never employ the services of somebody like him. He's too much. Now, did they use the place possibly, from rumors I've heard, as a laundromat? It's possible, but that's the only attachments they had as far as any organized crime. He was not the big mafia boss or killed little Nicky Napolitano. That's not him. That was another Joe Ritchie who whacked that guy in New York. But he played off it. That's how Joe Ritchie was. Joe Ritchie would take something and he'd run with it to his advantage. So you accuse him of killing little Nicky Napolitano in New York there. Well, it's not the same Joe Ritchie. It was a different Joe Ritchie. Believe it or not, there's a bunch of Joe Ritchies out there. There's even an actor named Joe Ritchie. But he caught that thing that they were going after him with the Key Bank thing and how all that happened, and he just monopolized on it. It was proven he wasn't the person. That's why the Key Bank thing went so well for him. He got the $15 million. But he still played it up like he was, he just wasn't. First of all, if you were involved in a group like that, you wouldn't be at your own racetrack shooting the place up with a machine gun. There's also articles about that. Well, you wouldn't be doing these things. That's one thing about those groups is everybody's very quiet and you don't announce yourself. It's all about the low profile, and he had anything but a low profile. But Joe Ritchie played it off. He'd take the girls to the track and things like that. But then some of these girls that went there, let's be honest, they weren't good girls to begin with. I'm not saying it was right because they were under mental treatment. It should have been done. But it's like any one of us. Hey, man, you guys want to go work at the racetrack? You smoke a little dope, hang out a little bit, have some beers? Yeah, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. Let's get the hell out of here. And we'd all be in the bus ready to go. Was it right? Were we being abused or something? Yeah, I guess technically we're not really supposed to be doing this. We're under mental health treatment. No, feeding us beer and a smoke pot and hang out at the racetrack is probably not what they're supposed to be doing with us. But it's free labor for them. almost everybody who worked anywhere in that place. I don't care if you worked in the kitchen, you were on the payroll. That was another one of his scams. Is he'd pay everybody. So if you worked in the kitchen, you were on the payroll. They were taking taxes out of you. You were being taxed, and a lot of people didn't realize this. And I told many people, I said, go call, get a hold of Social Security and find out when you started paying into Social Security, because he would do that. He'd pay you $6 an hour, $7 an hour, which is pittance, but he'd have like 50, 60, 70 people like this, and he'd give you $3 an hour, and he'd put that on your books for you, and you'd each pocket the rest. He was notorious for stuff like that. Notorious for that type of things. Everyone was on the payroll. Everybody got a check. That's just how it worked.
It's crazy all that was taking place right here in little old Maine, right?
Oh, right up there in little old Maine. I'll tell you, it's something I never would have believed. I mean, for a population of 1,500,000 people, you never think there would be that, but it's how it is. And I come from Chicago. Illinois is the most corrupt state in the country. But the things that went on up there, it's a shame too, because there's such good people up there. There's a lot of really good people there. It's just.
I swear that we don't want to just shoot random people. I promise.
No, and I know that from going up there. That's what surprised me about some of the cold cases I worked on, is how people like the Calvin Tidswells and stuff like that managed to roam around loose. When you got all these 6'8" Maynards up there with shotguns and rifles. I mean, good God, how's some guy 5'10" running around like that, just being and doing the things he did? I mean, it just doesn't make sense how somebody would just squash the guy.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Calvin is rumored to be involved with the disappearance of Kim Moreau from Jay, Maine, May 10th, 1986.
Yeah, and he was just a local crime wave. I mean, you can pull that name up, and this guy went to prison back and forth a dozen times. He was a local crime wave, and the town he's from, that was Leeds or Jay. It was so small that, I mean, everybody knows everything. There's probably 3 families literally that live in the area. Everybody's cousins, aunts, uncles. But I remember in that case there, when I started really hitting some nerves, and I got some of the Tidswells to come in, some of the family members started gathering around. It was going great guns, and all of a sudden Dick Moreau comes in and goes, well, I don't know. You're really upsetting them pretty bad. And, you remember that story, Travis. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So I've always said, I think Dick Moreau is the one that did it. If nothing, I think he did, because the daughter, from what I understand from her friends and people that grew up with her, she wasn't necessarily a good girl. And her dad was a drunk and snorted cocaine all night at the VFW down the street. That I also know from the people I talked to. And even he admitted they had problems back then with that. And I just believe they had an argument in the street and things got out of hand. Did he intentionally do it? No, but things get, was Calvin involved?
I don't know if I don't believe that, but let's stick on the case here on Élan.
So Jessica's saying, with Élan being so controversial and outrageous, I can't believe there's only 3 people here. I'm assuming that's from the viewer count. Yeah, this definitely needs, like, I knew that this place existed, but I didn't really hear much about it. Like, I'm surprised that I'm like the last couple of days seeing as much as I have. It's ridiculous. And she says so many of us are still so traumatized, though. Big time PTSD issues. And I would have to imagine even just like a day of being in that would, like, that's something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. I can't imagine being in there for years, or like.
When Phil Williams' case first hit the books up there, a lady named Karen Bundy, she was a nurse. She gave me a call. She was a nurse up there. And she said, Mark, about and this or that. If there's anything I can tell you about Élan when I was there, I'd sure love to talk to you. I said, that's wonderful. I really appreciate it. How'd you hear about it? Well, my daughter, she noticed it in the newspaper, and she was really funny about it, is that my daughter came when she was about 4 or 5 years old up there, when she was working. She brought her to work one day. And her daughter saw this in Phil Williams' thing, and I think she's maybe 19, 20 years old now. And the first thing she did was go, Mom, you remember that place where everybody's screaming and yelling? It's all that stuff. It's in the newspapers again. And that's how she found out, when you say traumatized. Here's an outside kid. I mean, just being exposed to the screaming and yelling and the chaos there. She never forgot the place. Never forgot the place. It was a place you could never forget. You never could forget that place.
Yeah.
And the stories just go on and on and on. You talk to me, you talk to anybody you see out there, go on the pages, and it's just more stories after more stories after more stories. Now, why didn't anybody do anything about it? I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, now, yeah, I don't know.
I wonder, like, who was getting their pockets lined, right, from the state?
Well, you know that. Bill Diamond was getting his kickbacks. I mean, those days, everybody's getting their share of cash. And over the years, they technically they legaled out this what they called stipends. But back in the 70s and early 80s, it was common. If you sent me somebody, I sent you a little something. That's just how it is. So if you send me a patient, I send you $500. And most of these doctors that would send people there retain control over them. So you would get a stipend every month just because you were still the doctor. So it was just there was just money. Everybody made money. That's just how it was. And then when it came time to up there, I mean, you got to figure in 1975, a state cop made, I think it was $7 an hour. They told me. You know how many people you could buy for $1,000? Think about it. Here you are in your little town of Poland in your little farmhouse there. You ain't got shit. Wife don't work. You got 3 kids. You're trying to make it on these, $400 a week, $200 a week, whatever you're doing. Riding around the mountains of Maine with a shotgun in the dark all night. And I tell you, I'll tell you what. I'll give you $500-$600 a week. You be my friend, okay? Yeah, no problem, buddy.
Right. And how much was he getting a month for the patients there?
What's that?
How much was he getting for everyone that was housed there?
$1,200.
$1,200 a month, right?
$1,200 a month, and when they closed, it was $52,000 a year.
What can you tell us about? Yeah, what can you tell about Officer Smiley?
Great guy, Officer Ashburn. He was a guy who found a runaway and took him to a truck stop and let him go. That was a cop there that just a great guy. He's retired. I was so impressed that he came out and said something because he could have got himself in obviously a lot of trouble. But he knew about Élan. He just knew about the place. He knew it was horrible. And this kid, he could see the fright and the fear in his face. And he took him to a truck stop, and he never heard from the kid again. But he hopes he made it home. But yeah, he was a guy that he was a good stand-up guy. And he came out around this Phil Williams time when I brought that case up there. That's when he came out. A lot of people in Maine, not a lot, but a few people in Maine came out. You know, Roy Glafinski, he was a probation officer in the area then. He came out and started telling stories about the place. And, you know, they would tell him, no, you mess around with Joe Ritchie, man, you could turn up in the woods. You know, and how he couldn't see his clients and stuff like that. And, you know, there's quite a few Maynards came out and started doing some talking. And these stories, you know, what really surprised me is I went to the coroner's office in Augusta one time doing some work, and how well they knew Joe Ritchie in there. How the hell? What are you doing at the coroner's office in Augusta, Joe? What would you be doing up here that they would remember you? I'm confused. Why would you be in the coroner's office in Augusta?
Right.
Which, you know, that just opens up another door to a bunch of questions of why. You know, why would you be there? It's a really, because I mean, you have lawyers, you have attorneys. If anything, if it was a resident or something, you have people that take care of that for you. There's a reason you should physically be there. And he was, because the women described him in the office as just being a complete pompous asshole. So they definitely met Joe Ritchie, no question about it.
So
Darcy Hayward says, my favorite murder did episode a year or two ago, and I was floored. I told my mom, and she was like, oh yeah, it was a bad place.
So Sandra's also saying here, she literally I literally handed my therapist the Last Stop DVD and told her to watch it, and then told her to imagine it being even worse.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've done that. I've given these things out to certain groups of people in some of these organizations, and they're almost they almost need a doctor to talk to. They're just like, you're this. Oh yeah, this how it went. Yeah, how many people you want? It's just.
Where can people watch that movie if they want to? Is it available on streaming services?
Yeah, just go on YouTube. It's free.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to find it on YouTube. And that's like Sandra said, that was just a glazing over of the place. That wasn't really the hardcore how it was. I mean, if you think that was bad, you know, like I said in the beginning, I mean, if we put out the real line to begin with, nobody ever believed it. They all ran out of the theater. You know, you saw the watered down version of the place. And just by talking to people and hearing other survivors, you start to understand, yeah, that place was a lot darker than the documentary described it, because all the stories are the same. And none of us really know each other. We weren't there at the same time. It's 40 years apart. A lot of, it's over 40 years and all these different people. We can't all have the same basic story.
Right. Same
We're
memories
all-
of something that didn't happen, right?
Exactly. And a lot of us are just very different people, politically, spiritually, everything. There's some of us, I mean, just completely different people. But yet we have that same story. You know, so it's got to be true.
Right.
And there's so much documentation. I have all the boxing gloves from Elan. You know, God only knows if you're wearing those through a lab, all the DNA on those things. You know, it's just, there's certain things you can't dispute.
Maybe at some point, if this is free on YouTube, maybe we should have a watch party for it sometime. As
That'd be
terrible
cool.
as it may be for some people to watch, but we could watch it with viewers.
That'd be cool.
Now Christina said, did they really just take kids from their homes?
Well, they would. Some kids would get the Elan snatch, and Gerald Davidson describes that in one of those interviews. And they would send people to your house, and they'd grab you and put you in a van and take you to the airport, and off the line you would go.
Jesus.
Or you'd come to like River Edge Hospital or Ridgeway Hospital, whatever juvenile hospital you were in for adolescents, and they just snatch you up in the middle of the night and off you go. That's how I got there. They came in the middle of the night and put me on a plane, and there I was.
Wow.
Telling I was going to ride horses and boat and stuff like that. You're gonna go fishing, boating, horseback riding.
Oh, it's a
Find
summer
your life.
camp.
They're going to help you out, Mark. They're going to show you how to
This
settle
pretty
down.
summer camp up in Maine.
Dude,
Yeah.
if you go on the museum site that I have, you will see the original brochures, and it shows all those pretty horses and those boats I'm talking about. It shows all that stuff.
Yeah.
That makes
You never
think-
saw them though, right?
Huh?
You never saw them though, right?
No, the horses were at the track, and you never rode them. And the boats, I don't think we even had one down at the beach there. I don't think there was. There was a lifeguard chair down there, but there was no boat because somebody would have escaped. There's only one boat out there. Yeah, no, there was none of that. Now, in later years, in the 2000s, I think in the late 90s, maybe they started taking people on some trips to Boston or something like that. I heard of that stuff, but there was nothing like that when we were in the early years. Nothing. You know, later years, I think they had to slow it down just because it just got too off the chain for the times. You know, they were just too far off the chain. So yes, I had to reel it back in. And then once Joe died, I think it was 2011, maybe, or somewhere there. Oh, no, not 2011. 2001, when he died. Then Sharon Terry knew she had to put the brakes on a lot of that shit because it wasn't going to work. You know, and she got served well. She died in a nursing home of Alzheimer's, seeing zebras and spiders on the walls and elephants running through her room. And you couldn't plan a better death for a person like her. Almost the way Joe Ritchie died, because he died of lung cancer. And he was hallucinating and everything else. And that's when Sharon Terry duped him out of his will and got the kids thrown out. And she was only married to him for a year. And while he was in the hospital on his deathbed, she had him sign the will over to where she was the boss. She had everything, where Noah and Jason got screwed. And
wow.
Oh yeah. And she thought she got a golden apple. That dumb bitch didn't realize that you got everything, including Joe Ritchie in his past. And that's what killed her. Because she was never Joe Ritchie, nor she could ever be Joe Ritchie. So she didn't have the strength and the stamina to stand up to the attacks when we started out on MySpace back in the day. And we just bombarded these people. The internet, we had it so loaded up with anti-Elan stuff, it was ridiculous.
Now, how did you become like the spokesman for Elan Survivors? How did that come about?
I don't know that I really am. I guess I just stand up the most. I don't know. A lot of these people, they just, you know, they want to say something, but they just really can't. They're still really screwed up because of this place. So they just don't know how to go about it. Where I've always been more of an aggressive, outgoing, go get it, put my boots on the ground type guy. And that's kind of where I've at. I mean, I'm not the spokesman for the whole group. You know, I never say I've done stuff. I always say we. You know, we do stuff as a community, and I work for a community. You know, and it's not about who's the boss or who's not the boss. It's just somebody's got to get out there and do the talking, and I seem to get shoved in front of the line all the time. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And some people just don't probably want to pretend it never happened, right? Just
well, you know, until
don't want to talk about it.
It's important when you talk, you have facts. That's one thing that really kept Elan and Sharon Terry and her lawyer Ed McCall off our asses, is the fact that they were dealing with me. And that's one thing I made very apparent throughout the whole campaigns. Talk to me. I'm the boss. You talk to me. They don't want no part of me because they knew I had stacks and stacks and stacks of papers on these people. I'm one of the last 11 that Illinois pulled out of there in 76. I have so much shit in my bag that I can throw at them that they don't want to get into a courtroom and even start discussing any of this stuff. Oh, this stuff isn't true. Come on, let's go into a courtroom and discuss this. And I was so brash.
But no one's actually been prosecuted for any of this, though, right?
No. Maine don't want to do nothing about it. It's just such a hard thing to go through, and class action suits could take you the rest of your life to get done. And a lot of these survivors, it's like herding cats, man. To get them all in the same room, it's like herding cats in a barn. It's too hard to do. But
especially when they won't investigate it in the first place, right?
Right.
They won't investigate any of it to start with.
Exactly. And like I said to many survivors in the very beginning, back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we're not on a mission to get justice in a courtroom. We're on a mission to turn the tables on them. Frankenstein's monsters are coming home, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to run these people as crazy as we possibly can run them. We're going to mentally abuse them so bad, just like they did to us, that now that they're older, we're stronger, we're much wiser. Now we're the abusers. Now we take control. You bullied us when we were kids. Well, guess what? We're not kids no more. We're going to bully you. We're going to make your life miserable. Every store you walk into, somebody's going to know who you are, and they're not going to like what they see. We're going to make you look over your shoulder, not because anybody's going to hurt you, but you're going to be embarrassed and shamed any place you go for what you are. And we did a fantastic job on that. We beat these people's reputations into the ground. These people, there's nowhere. I passed out copies of the documentary to everybody in the State House, just so they could see Bill Diamond. They could know about Bill Diamond. Everybody in the State House knows all about Bill Diamond. My ethics suit that I did, you can find that on the documentary site. That ethics case, nice, all colored graphs and everything else. Bill Diamond's life in a book. Everybody in the State House got a copy of that, complimentary of me. I knew it wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't expecting it to go anywhere, but I want everybody you're sitting next to know all about you, Travis. So when you walk in the next morning, they're all looking for a desk. I'm like, oh, hey, Travis. You're like, oh, yeah, I know. There's a lot of ways of screwing with people are much better than a jail cell or a bullet to the head. Just shame you and humiliate you, make you look like nothing, show you as the trash that you truly are. Right. And your public has to recognize that. They might not say nothing about it, but they recognize it. And they recognize it. That's why you try to hide it for so many years. And that's what we did to them. We shamed them into hell. Now you talk to people in Maine about Élan. A lot of people have heard about Élan. Oh yeah, the Elan School. We know about the Elan School. They know about it now. You don't put that on your resume anymore. I worked at the Elan School. You don't do that no more. That's not a good idea.
Sandra says Mark is a pit bull.
Well,
Christina asked if you still live in the Poland area, and you live in Chicago now, right?
I live in Chicago, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's where you're from anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
no,
I got stuck up here for some torture for 18 months.
Yeah, just experienced Maine for 18 months of the torture. When I was at Parsonsfield, I was in a dungeon. There's pictures of that on the pages too. There's a cell down in the basement of Parsonsfield. I was lucky enough to have that as my accommodations for about 90 days. Wasn't that pleasant. Yep, granite stone walls, and it's just.
Is that an open group on Facebook?
Yeah, the documentary.
What is it called?
Elan School Documentary.
So hopefully people will jump on there and follow that page.
Go through the files and the media and stuff there. You see all kinds of stuff that just blow your mind. And it's good that people see those things, because then it's not like they feel somebody's up here just blowing a lot of hot air up everybody's ass and trying to play violins for the crowd. And no, this is real stuff, man. Here you go. Here's some stuff to read. Read it. You tell me what you think.
It does say that it is a private group for the Elan School documentary. Maybe that's changed recently.
Just ask to join. Somebody will let you in.
Yeah, but I'll put the links in chat here for people to.
Yeah, it's a public group. Just ask to join. Somebody will let you in. But almost anywhere on the internet you go, there's hundreds and hundreds of little videos and this and that, even in French and Spanish. Because we had people from Venezuela, we had people from Canada. It was crazy. The Venezuelan connection. How do people 3,000 miles away find the state of Maine? Of all places in the United States, how can you find a state of Maine from Venezuela 3,000 miles away?
You're looking for
Poland,
a place to put a troubled child.
Especially your Poland Springs, Maine, to be specific. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. I mean, you know.
They followed the water.
Yeah, they followed the water. What they did is they laid a nice white trail. There was always rumors Joe used to get coffee from down there, and the coffee cans were always full of a little bit more than coffee. That was always a rumor. Don't know it to be true, but I do know Joe walked around jacked up all the time. He'd come in general meetings at 2:00 in the morning, hyperventilating in his big pimp coat, his big long maxi coat with his big fedora on, and his two Dobermans with him a lot of times. I mean, this guy, I swear to God, he looked like a cheap New York pimp. Is what he looked like. He'd pull up in his 4-door Jaguar Vanden Plaza, maroon one he had, and he was unbelievable. He would look like Liberace. That's what he looked like. He was like Liberace without the sequins. The guy was nuts. He bought a Jaguar, and he'd have to drop it off in Boston, I think, every 2 or 3 weeks to get it fixed. I mean, there was no place in Maine to service Mercedes or any of that stuff up there. That's the type of guy he was. But he had to have that Jaguar so he could show off in front of everybody, make him think he was a big shot. That was Joe Ritchie. Yep. He was unbelievable. He used to have girls guard him at night. He was super paranoid. Girls would guard him at night. He'd sleep in his office, and the girls would have to stay outside, and they have 2 girls stay inside. Now, why not guys? I don't know, because there were some real brutes there that could have guarded him, but he picked women instead.
Interesting.
That was a very strange thing.
It's not suspicious at all.
Yeah.
We would like to not want to step away from the story or anything, but we do have to thank Christina, our newest Patreon subscriber. Just wanted to put that out there. And I don't know if it's Christina that's in the chat right now, but thank you for that.
Yeah, Christina Simmons.
I don't know if it's the same one because the name isn't the same in on Patreon. It's just Christine on Patreon. But anyways, sorry about that. Just had to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm still blown away that so much of this, like, this is so new for me, hearing like that I've never heard the rest of this. Right. Oh, it is.
Well, that's how it is too, Jeff. For a lot of survivors, it's like that too, Jeff. That a lot of them have just been, had this suppressed for all these years, and they really start waking up to this stuff. And it happens when you get older. As you get older, you start to slow down a little bit. You start to think a little bit about more your past and what you did or what you didn't do, or what you should have did, why you made the decisions you made. And you start hitting these things and you start wondering. So you really start thinking. And that's when this stuff will come back at you. You'll start remembering when you were a kid and your uncle and your grandpa and this and that, or a bad time at school or some person you didn't know. And, that's how it is. And a lot of these people are coming out of these shells now 20, 30 years later. And they're just like, Jesus Christ. Because they thought it was craziness too, until they started actually getting in some of these groups and finding out that no, this actually did happen. It is almost some crazy memory that I have. Your life moves fast when you're young. A lot of get jammed. A lot of times your memory gets screwed up. You got so much in a short period of time, you kind of mix things up and get confused yourself sometimes. And now, once you realize that Élan was exactly what you thought it was, it angers you. You're like, damn, stop your life.
Think back and wow, that was really fucked up, right? Yeah.
That was really fucked up, yeah. Any of us made it through with no problem at all, and many never made it out. There's a lot of suicides. They didn't help people there. And by humiliating them, demeaning them all the time, a lot of these people had no self-esteem to begin with. It really fucked them up. And then they turned into drug addicts and, died of suicide. It just wasn't what they needed, especially at those ages.
Have they done any studies on that? Like percentage of kids that had went there that died of suicide?
Not that I know.
Off the record, what do you think the percentage was? Like 5%, 1%? Really?
Probably 10%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I know, I just off the top of my head, I probably know 4 people that took themselves out. And people that you talked to yesterday, like we're talking all right now, next thing you know, Jeff takes himself out. Why? Who knows what the fuck happened? We were all just sitting there yesterday, just having a good old time talking and having fun. Never showed a sign, never said a thing. Next thing you know, guess what? Jeff's out. It's just like that. It's was it Élan? Was it something else? You really don't know, all these years later, but Maybe it was.
Well, yeah,
Maybe
I
it
mean,
was just something
going in, right, they were probably a bit unstable to start with, but that place did not help at all, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
there's
No,
so and Sandra says when the documentary came out, I couldn't believe how much stuff I'd remembered that I had suppressed for so many years. Yeah, and I have to imagine that's probably the case for just about
Sandra's right.
everyone that went there.
Sandra's absolutely right. It was a big trigger mechanism for a lot of people. Even me. I mean, I was there for 18 months, and I was basically with doing my research and all the years I've been doing this now, 20 years almost. All the time I've spent on this thing, it's like I was in Élan for 40 years, because all the stories I heard and all the memories I had come back, and this came back. It was like you experienced the place for the whole 40 years. It's ridiculous. You know, you just finally learn just to absorb it and just it's over. The big bad witch is dead. It's all over. Because I mean, the stories you hear, I mean, it's sometimes you wonder if people aren't trying to know the other ones. The stories you hear are absolute gospel truths. You know, so it's not somebody trying to outdo the other one. It's absolutely true. You know, my dear friend Diane Very, she passed away and some time back, and birthday they dressed her up, put tampons on her head. In ketchup, you see it in the documentary. You'll see the tampon girl. Diane Very was the original tampon girl. They were on her birthday. I mean, you know, stuff. I don't know why. And she grew up a horrible life. Her mom used to pull plugs out of her sister's hair and beat her, and used to beat her, and Élan in some ways almost saved her life. But to go to a place like Élan and they just abused her further. Mary O'Brien, God bless her soul. She's the one that does all the drawings and stuff. They rode that poor girl's ass. She was there 12 years, I think, or 10, 11 or 12 years. And she's one of the longest. Her and Doug Hanna were the longest residents. They just abused her. Back then, she looked like Raggedy Ann. She had this long red curly hair, and she wasn't very tall, and she had these kind of funky looking eyes. She had like these cat eyes because she had a vision thing going on. And they just abused this poor girl. Just abused her. She used to draw all the time. She used to love drawing, and they'd take her crayons and her pencils and break them, smash them. For what, I have no idea. It was such a bully thing too. You just look and go, why? Because Mary was absolutely harmless. But she got locked, just dumped
soft
in there.
target, easy to pick on, right?
Oh yeah, and she just, and she stood up for herself. She'd act out, but she was a poor kid that her parents put her in there, her dad or something. The way I think that's the way the story went, and she just kind of got left there, just left. I don't even know who paid for her. She just got left there. Doug Hanna, he got sentenced there. He's dead now. He passed away. And he was a guy there who got sent there he was there, it was 9 years, 10 years. He never conformed, but he was there a long time. There's people there that it was bad. It was just a bad place overall, just a bad place. I don't remember a lot of sunny days there. I know damn well there had to be sun, but I don't even remember sun when I was in the place. It always seemed dark. It always cloudy. And I noticed it's like get dark quicker than it does here in the Midwest, but it was just it was overcast all the time. And there's no way it was overcast for a year and a half. No way. It's impossible. It's possible, but I doubt it. But it was just that's the muck that they left you in. That was your mental state of mind. It was always gloomy.
Yeah.
There was never happiness.
Yeah, definitely need to get this out there more. So I like the idea of maybe someday soon here we'll do a little watch party on here on Facebook and YouTube where people can see this. Not a ton of people coming and watch this, but it's still some more people that might be able to see it. Hopefully, they can share it out.
Any eyes are good eyes because you never know what eyes see it. That's the thing.
Right.
You don't have to have 100 people see something. You just got to have the right person see it. That's all.
Exactly.
Just the right one.
Exactly.
And in this society we're in today, it's so hard to get attention on stuff like this because let's call it how it is. People are, they're more worried about abortions and this and that, and they're more about taking life than saving lives. Who really cares about abused kids? It happens so much. Élan is just a small example of it, but nobody seems to do anything about it. You got Epstein, people like that. Nobody's ever going to be held accountable. Nobody.
Well, I think it was just a couple days ago. There was like 140 or 170 people were arrested in Florida in like some trafficking sting. Like, how does something like that even? How are there that many people? Like, you don't think that, right? Like, I don't think that there's that many people around to be part of something like that, but apparently there are. It just shows that how gross things can be.
Yeah. Since the border's been wide open, we've lost 85,000 counting kids. Where are they all at? Where are the 85,000 kids at? That's a famous question everybody's been asking. Where are they at? Where are they at? Where do these kids come from? They cross over the borders, and a lot of these kids aren't even crossing over with their families. It's all make believe. And what do you think happens to these poor kids? You know, human trafficking. Right. I mean, it's man, I'm telling you, it's
an evil thing.
It's evil, and people try to hide it, and they want to turn their heads the other way about it. It makes it dumb. It just dumb. You know, parents, you know, hopefully they hear these things. They understand that when their kid's in a situation, they maybe need a couple extra help. Look at these places. Go out and see these places. If they won't let you see them, don't use it. Don't go there.
Right.
You know, I understand when you get a kid who's disruptive, you got to get them out of the house. Got to get them away from friends for a while. Kind of in isolation for about 30 days. Get them away. Let everybody separate. But then over time, you kind of bring them back together, and you want to include the families because eventually he's going to go back to the family. You know, the initial breakup it's very understood, it's very needed. You know, it gives you both a chance to breathe. But eventually you want to put it back together, and that's not what Elan was about. It wasn't about weaving the families back together. It was I don't know what it was really about. Weaving you into whatever they
could making money.
Yeah. Well, they did the wallet biopsy on you when you got there, when you ran out of money. Guess what? You graduated. That's pretty much how it went.
Oh, jeez.
You ran out of money. Insurance company quit paying.
Congratulations, you're better.
He's healed. Yeah. He's all healed.
You're healed.
Wow.
You're healed.
All right.
If you drink the Kool-Aid, you're doing good.
That Sandra said, not unless you're Paris Hilton. She speaks up about her experiences at the school she went to, and then it's a fleeting moment. The movement's over as soon as it started. Yeah, and that's another thing about now too is it's easy for a new headline to pop up for people to pay attention to, and it's real easy for people to stop caring about something once it's out of the headlines for a minute.
We're oversaturated with info.
But there's somebody there, Paris Hilton. If she would have went into it the right way and would have went in there, I am the mouth people that can't speak, because ability to speak. She would have. So you're having. I'd like some of those.
Oh, I think your internet's cutting out a little bit.
An actual sincere thing, where if she would have went into it differently, she's got the answer. Start a little documentary things.
I think we're losing you a little bit there, Mark.
Still there?
The internet's cutting out. Oh, well. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Poor timing for that.
Yeah,
Mark, can you still hear us?
I heard him laughing.
Paris has the money to where she could do pretty much whatever she wanted to do.
Mark, can you still hear us? I heard him laughing.
No, we're hearing ourselves.
Yeah, I'm still here. You hear me now?
Oh, now we're hearing ourselves.
Well, you can hear yourself?
We can hear you now, too.
What's with you?
But we can hear you now, too.
No, I was saying that Paris Hilton, I mean, she has enough money to where she could have kept her campaign moving for a long time to come.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
You know, yeah, she did. She could have bought Provo Canyon and burned it down, but she didn't. I mean, when you got $128 million, you come from that family, I mean, you got a lot of power to do a lot of things. Do very much. If you gave me $128 million, believe me, you'd hear about Elan all over the world. Everybody would know my sad story along with everybody else's. I would buy a documentary company and have them put nothing but documentaries up about places like that. I'd pay to have that done, because I could do that. And just run it off as a charitable donation.
We're starting to cut in and out again there. Well, I think might be about a good time to call it with this. think the
Yeah, I think
technical
so.
difficulties are starting to come back. Can you still hear us, Mark? Uh-oh. Hopefully we get him back before we actually go. But I can still say to the people watching, thank you very much for joining us. We'll definitely look into trying to do the watch party thing there for
I think that'd be cool.
that. I think it'd be pretty good. Just gotta find a time that we can both get on. I mean, maybe even tomorrow, but I don't want to make any commitments. And anyone that's listening, you know, we'd appreciate if you like, share, subscribe, all of that. Get the help get this story out there. Oh, we got Mark back. Can you hear us? Oh, his mic isn't. Oh no.
I'll tell you what, the audio was great there for the longest time, though.
Yeah,
So
it was
really
really
lucky.
good. Can you hear us? Oh, we still can't hear you. Well, we're just getting ready to head out, and we can't hear you, but we do want to say thank you very much for joining us, Mark. If you can hear us. Oh, still can't. We've overcome a lot of technical difficulties to get this on tonight, and it seems to just be coming back at us. But oh, thank you very much, Mark. We greatly appreciate you're coming to talk to us, and would anything that you want to share with us, send to our page that you want us to share out. We'll definitely do that, and I'll share out the link again to that Facebook page. That'll be in the chat for people to go there. Definitely go check that out. But thank you again. It's much appreciated, and thank everyone
much, Mark.
for joining us.
All right.
We still can't hear you, Mark. I'm sorry.
He's saying that. I think he's saying Travis and Jeff are the greatest.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Thank
you have
you.
a great night, man. All right. Thank
Good
everyone
night.
for joining us. You all take care.